The Noid. He's back and so am I. It's one thing we share in common. You might ask, why the Redux in the title? Well, I did a little video titled The Noid, Knowing When to End a Campaign a little over 5 years ago, as of writing this video, for a school project. 43,000 views later, and I think it's time to revisit the little red dude, as there's been some developments in the cheesy land of Domino's Pizza and beyond. So join me as we take a trip through time and talk about the Noid's dark past, newly founded present, and see if he has a future. It's the Noid, Knowing When to End a Campaign, Redux. The Noid started his life as nothing more than an idea in the heads of the advertising agency Group 243 in 1986. That agency is now defunct, but some people who were involved in that campaign did get together in 2018 to answer some interview questions for Slate.com. One of which being Group 243's creative director at the time, Ernie Parrish. To put it short, the idea of the Noid came when they wanted to push that delivery wouldn't ruin pizza. Since at the time, Pizza Hut was known for its in-store dining, leaving people to think the pizza is going to be ice cold, with cheese stuck to the top of the box and smell like cigarette smoke because the driver's smoking in the car, if it gets delivered. They thought of how to showcase this idea of pizza showing up hot and fresh when Tom Masters came up with the idea of having a bad guy. After that came the name. You might wonder where such a name could come from. The Noid. He's the Noid because you want to avoid him, right? Wrong. The name Noid actually comes from Domino's, as apparently Domino's employees call themselves Dominoids, and thus the idea of the Noid was born. But who was to bring this idea to life? In comes Will Vincent Studios, famous for their claymation work such as Return to Oz, The PJs, The California Raisins obviously, and so much more stop motion goodness. Who better to bring to life such a creature that is the Noid? Will Vincent Studios got to work. Soon the Noid would make his debut to the public and the world would never be the same. We first saw the Noid in a series of commercials showcasing the many ways the Noid could ruin pizzas, only to be stopped by Domino's Pizza in the end. These commercials were extremely successful and even put the Noid up as a cultural icon in the 80s. Back to the Slate interview, Tim McIntyre, head of communications at Domino's, said the campaign was more successful than we had imagined. Letters were being sent, phone calls were being made, people were going directly to the stores. All not for pizza, but to ask if Noid merchandise was for sale. Domino's got right to work making t-shirts, collectible figures, and anything else they could incorporate the Noid into. And that includes video games. Most people know about the 1990 game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, but 1 year prior in 1989, the Noid made his pixelated debut on DOS and Commodore 64 in a game simply titled Avoid the Noid. You play as a pizza delivery boy who, as you guessed, must deliver pizza while the Noids try to stop you. Yes, Noids with an S. This is the only instance where we see the Noids as a species instead of a single being. This game is fairly forgotten, especially in relation to the other official Noid game, so there aren't many reviews available. It's very mixed from what I could put together. Basically your average licensed pizza mascot DOS game from the 80s. It did come with a coupon for a free pizza topping though, according to the box, so it's a 10 out of 10 in my book. As for the game most people think of when you tell them the Noid video game, Yo Noid for the Nintendo Entertainment System is that. This popular pizza-based platformer was published by Capcom in 1990 in North America. The plot centers around you playing as the Noid, unlike the previous game. Yes, the Noid is the hero this time, called upon by the mayor to stop Mr. Green and his other evil duplicates. I'm considering these not the same species, more just creatures trying to frame poor little Noid. So with his trusty yo-yo, the Noid travels through New York City to save everyone and enjoy a nice pizza reward. Now, Avoid the Noid on PC is a simple game that takes less than 10 minutes to complete, so it probably didn't cost Domino's too much to hire people to make it. Yo Noid, on the other hand, is a fully fledged platformer that could take about an hour to beat, if you know what you're doing. So why did Domino's invest so much into this masterpiece? They didn't. The game was made using Namco's Wagan LAN engine. And even going deeper, the game uses the same mechanics and level designs as the game Kamen no Ninja Hanamaru, which was released in Japan months earlier. Safe to say it was relatively cheap for Domino's to just slap a different coat of paint on an existing game. But even knowing that, we still love Yo Noid for the NES. And I bet Cam and No Ninja didn't come with a $1 off coupon for Domino's. Along with video games, Domino's continued in trying to turn the Noid into an entertainment powerhouse, planning a Saturday morning cartoon series called The Noids. Maybe this is where we would have seen that elusive Noid species come to life outside of a video game. It went so far as that CBS announced in 1988 it was the channel it would be run on. But ultimately, this idea was scrapped as criticism arose of the exploitation of children in that it would have been a lengthy Domino's commercial. Even with executives arguing against that notion, saying the show was not going to promote any bad habits in kids. The debate went on with executives saying the show would develop even with the pushback. It did not. Even without his own show on TV, the Noid would eventually make his way to the big screen. And I'm not talking about an advertisement before the movie. The Noid made a guest appearance in Michael Jackson's Moonwalker movie in 1988, as Will Vincent Studios had a hand in its production. Let's take a look, shall we? And that concludes the Noid's life in movies. On January 30th, 1989, in a Chamblee, Georgia Domino's, a man would walk into the restaurant to make an order and then immediately pull out a .357 Magnum revolver. He took 2 employees hostage in a standoff that lasted over 5 hours. During this time, the man demanded $100,000 in ransom money, a limousine to use as a getaway car, and later offered to surrender for just a copy of the book, The Widow's Son. The police did provide the book, but the man had lied. The standoff finally ended when the man ordered the employees to make him a pizza. The employees were able to escape while he was distracted eating. He soon gave up and was apprehended, later charged with kidnapping, aggravated assault, theft by extortion, and possession of a firearm during a crime. The man's name? Kenneth Lamar Noid, who believed Domino's was targeting the commercials at him, telling everyone to avoid him. Not found guilty by reason of insanity, Kenneth Noid spent time in a mental institute to later die by suicide on February 23, 1995. Although Domino's denies this entire ordeal being the reason for phasing out the Noid as a mascot, it's hard for many to see this as why not, since the Noid seemed to disappear completely, at least in any official sense. Domino's could avoid the Noid's existence, but people sure couldn't. With such a phenomenon that was the Noid, it was sure to leave a lasting impression in pop culture. Such Noid unofficial appearances are in The Simpsons and Family Guy, where he can be seen in some wholesome and not so wholesome character depictions, along with references in shows like 30 Rock, where a character states clearly to avoid the Noid as life advice. One of the biggest unofficial Noid projects to come out of the shadows was a brand new Noid game, the unofficial sequel to Yo Noid on the Nintendo Entertainment System, titled Yo Noid 2: Enter the Void. Developed in 1 month and released in 2017 for a Game Jam, this 3D platformer gives us a what-if look if there really was a Yo Noid sequel at the time, with its Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1 looking graphics. Overall, a great little free game to honor the Noid by fans. But after so many years, was Domino's themselves just never going to acknowledge the Noid's existence again? Well, after years of putting the Noid into the vault, some signs of life could be seen peeking out. As in 2009, Domino's dipped their toes in the Noid pool with a limited run of 1,000 Noid t-shirts. 2 years later, Domino's would continue teasing the Noid and celebrate the Noid's 25th birthday in 2011, starting with a cameo in a commercial appearing as a stuffed toy. But the real celebration started later in 2011 when Domino's would create a video game on Facebook titled The Noid Super Pizza Shootout. It had retro game graphics, and players could win $10 Domino's gift cards. This game was unfortunately only public for a week, putting the Noid right back to the vault, with only little Easter eggs and cameos over the next few years. One of the coolest things that came from Domino's during this period was a pinball machine when they partnered with Spooky Pinball. The machine was heavily Noid themed. This was released in 2016, titled Domino's Spectacular Pinball Adventure, with the tagline, "Do you have what it takes to battle the Noid?" And soon Domino's would ask that same question to the entire world once more. In April of 2021, Domino's finally did it. After 26 tease-filled years in the shadows, the Noid finally returned to the spotlight as Domino's mascot. Featured, not cameoed, in its new delivery commercials, letting the public know once again to avoid the Noid with their new self-driving technology. Domino's will be going all out with the return of the Noid, doing things like decorating stores with Noid-proof stickers on doors and windows. Those are bound to stay for years to come. Another big announcement during this time is that the Noid would once again enter the video game world, this time as an enemy in the mobile game Crash Bandicoot on the Run. The Noid would have his own character profile in the game, noting 2021 as the return of the Noid. The Noid would also go vertical, with Domino's posting videos such as the Noid dancing to TikTok. In what can only be described as his lair, the Noid becomes frustrated to the point where he brings out the modernized pizza crusher, leading to Noid shenanigans. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows though. The Noid had his own official Twitter account created, and while that doesn't sound too bad, it's the reason behind it that was. Part of the bio on the account is, "I'm only back to bother at Domino's," but the Noid bothered a majority of his fans with his latest scheme. The Noid NFTs. Yes, Domino's created Noid NFTs during the NFT bubble at the time. Although this might have been the biggest brand marketing using NFTs, as Domino's technically didn't make the NFTs. The Noid did. The Noid, being a villain, would make NFTs. And Domino's themselves went on their own accounts telling people not to buy the Noid NFTs as it would fund the Noid. So, actual attempt at selling 3 NFTs, or beautiful marketing ploy, knowing most people would have distaste for NFTs. What do you think? And that's it for the Noid as of the beginning of 2023. Will Domino's continue using the Noid? Or has he gone back in the vault until needed again? One thing for sure is we will always have the Noid in our hearts and continue referencing him. As even just recently, the hit game Pizza Tower that was released in 2023 has a major character called the Noise that people seem to love, which is a direct reference to the Noid. When will we see the Noid next? Officially and unofficially? I guess at this point, it's only a matter of when and not if. Let me know your thoughts on the Noid. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, and this is Papa Mac reminding you to avoid the Noid.